Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody, please get on over there. Meet Robert and Andre. Hey, y'all. Sending you all so much love, my morning stars. Please get over to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and like the show. Robert and Andre, would you please like the show? We need to continue to get those thumbs up and move our algorithm around. So that's very, very important. Thank you so much. And everybody else, please like and share, like and share. Are you looking at the convention? It is exciting and it's very interesting. There's so much that's coming out. There's so much that we're seeing. And then there are protests that are going on. Now, the reports are saying that it's that the protests are much smaller than expected. But what's also interesting is that this is how you break up movements, Dr. LaShawn Latrice from Make Noise for Change and Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. You and I learned this from my parents, from their movement experience. You come in and you divide the protest. And by not allowing people to locate centrally, they divided everything up. Now, I'm not saying that you can't combat that, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but that is what has happened. I would caution everyone to remember that the discontent around various issues is very, very real. When you look at Gaza, that's very real. 14% of the delegates are uncommitted. Now, have they been swayed by the ascension of Vice President Kamala Harris? Some have not, because the race is still extraordinarily tight. She has made tremendous gains, no question about that. And that's exciting to watch. And we will see how she can utilize this convention to enhance her standing amongst the American people, because they still don't really know who she is, right? So you have to give her a chance to get known. That having been said, she's not broken away from former President Donald Trump. He still has legs, everybody. That means that we need to watch what it is what he represents to people. And I'm not saying that you need to be obsessed with him. And some of us are in a negative way. You need to study him so you can understand what you're fighting, what you're up against, right? So everybody, please like and share the show. Please like and share Robert and Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia and Zenobia. Please like and share the show. Bernadette, like and share the show. Everybody like and share the show. But what have you seen thus far? What about President Biden's speech last night? What did you make of it? What did you make of former, I was about to say president, because she did win the popular vote, everybody. She did win it. She won that popular vote. She just didn't win the electoral vote. Those flyover states, she didn't win those. So what about Hillary Clinton? There was a wonderful tribute to civil rights leaders, and they put Reverend Jackson at the center of it. I got a lot of messages from all of you, and I'm so touched that you were touched by the work that he's done. You know, I will say, and I'm not speaking of my father, I'm speaking of Reverend Jackson, the institution. He has fundamentally reshaped not only the party, but American politics and really global politics. We hear from people all over the world that, particularly people of color who settled in Western countries, when I saw him, I knew that I could make it. I hear from Palestinian adults who were children when he ran or who were young people when they ran. They said, you know, when he called my name, it meant so much. When we've talked to South Africans, they say, whew, you have no idea to have him on that stage advocating for us meant everything. And it means so much that so many people are giving him so much love. And I can tell you as his daughter, I'm so glad that he's alive to see it. But I think that the true impact of the work that he has done, he won't see in his lifetime. We never do, right? And that's not a sad thing. You do your work and then you go on, and that's it. And so, but I'm so grateful that God has given him this time. And so thank you for that. But let's talk about this. And let's talk about this convention, because this convention has been shaped by his work. You would not have had a Barack Obama, a Bernie Sanders, who he actually wanted to have escort him out, Dr. LaShawn Latrice and Daryl Jones, Attorney Jones, because Bernie Sanders came out of our campaign, as did Jamie Raskin, the congressman. And they will stop you and tell you, Congressman Jamie Raskin stopped us in the middle of an event. He said, whoa, my first job coming out of Harvard Law School, I was general counsel for the Rainbow. Many people don't know that. I said, yeah, no, I went, what? Yeah, he's from a very progressive family. He headed up Harvard Law Students for Jesse Jackson. And when he graduated from law school, as we were formulating the Rainbow, because he came out in 88, he said, okay, I want to go and be the foundational lawyer for this organization. And that's what he was. So, um, you know, Reverend has seen and touched a whole lot of lives, but this whole rainbow movement has fundamentally reshaped how we live. You would not have had a Barack Obama. You would not have had a Geraldine Ferraro. It was Reverend Jackson who advocated for a woman to be on the ticket. And none of his other competitors would commit to that. Vice President Mondale committed to that to undercut the momentum that Reverend Jackson had in 1984. No one expected him to do so well, to finish third in this group of 6 or 7 people. They expected him to be out after the first contest, and yet he lasted. And no one really remembers who ran in 84 and 88. Isn't that interesting? That's yep. It makes you think, Daryl. You never know. That's why everybody, do not be anxious in well doing. Continue to do the right thing for the right reasons. Ask God to clean out your heart so that you can make your contribution. You don't know who you are helping. When Reverend was going through a jail and trying to give some people some encouragement, he met a young inmate named Greg Mathis, and Greg stayed with us, and we stayed with him. And look at him now. You never know who you're touching. And Cleo Fields looks like he's on his way back to Congress. It's an exciting time, everybody. So let's talk about what we saw last night, and how do you think this candidacy of Kamala Harris is moving the needle? What did you think about President Biden's speech? He is still president, everybody, and he will be for a few more months. What will he do with this time that he has left? He is one of the longest. No one has, there are very few people who've lasted in electoral politics as long as he has, Attorney Daryl Jones, at that level. You got to give him a lot of credit for that. So, what will he do next? What is he going to do with these last 4 or 5 months that he has in office? I promise you, he's going to do something. We need to watch out for that too. And it's something that should she become president, will have to live with. So it's all of that. All of that. It'll be interesting to see if he will twin himself to her to rescue his legacy, or to have her rescue his. You tell me. You tell me. What are your thoughts, everybody? And thank you for liking and sharing, everybody. Like the show, please, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody, like and share, like and share, like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson YouTube channel, and on Santita Jackson and Friends. Like and share. Everybody, I need you to get those thumbs up, get them up, get them up, get them up. And of course, we are on X at Santita J. Please meet me over there. So we have got Dr. LaShawn Latrice. She's a community psychologist, and she is from the group Make Noise for Change. And noise is being made in Chicago. It is. It is. And of course, the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. On the air every Tuesday with attorney Barbara Arnwine, from 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss that show. It's a great one. So let's get to it, everybody. Let me start with you, Dr. LaShawn Latrice. This is in our hometown. What did you see?
Wow, good morning, everyone.
Good
I saw
morning.
a lot of celebrating. I saw a lot of fanfare. Um, it was almost like there was the World Series happening. I was extremely impressed by the standing ovation for Reverend Jackson for all of his contributions. That I spoke to many people. Everyone was moved to tears, just with the acknowledgement of, like you said, all of the changes that have taken place that have led up to today. Even the unprecedented moves that people probably frowned upon back then, but now they're being celebrated. I just was, oh my God, it was awesome. That
Well,
right there was probably worth the day right there.
why was that worth the day? And does that help move the needle on some people who've taken issue, right, with who are still doubtful about the ticket?
Yes.
Did that help at all?
Um, I think it helped in helping people keep the faith and keep hope alive, because we've heard those words for years, for decades. And to see there be an acknowledgement at the DNC so publicly, I think that was hopeful for people. Now, as far as myself, when it comes to the ticket, I don't know if it necessarily changed my view on what the ticket looks like.
Hmm.
I still saw, and even up until that point, I saw a lot of celebrating as if there was not in a convention, but it was more like a party or a giant concert. You know, some people I talked to, they even compared it to sermons at the church. And I thought that was kind of funny because, you know, we all know what sermons look like. But just from person to person, my opinion varies so much. But it was very interesting, to say the least. I enjoyed the fact that there was this show of unity. But it's so funny how to me it did not really matriculate to what was going on outside, or what's being said in the communities. So I still think there's a major disconnect between what the DNC represents and what people perceive it as. I mean, you can look at some of the comments across social media. It was all kinds of things going across. And just the small conversations that I had with people who was watching the DNC with me. Some we had some mixed reviews. I'll say that.
Mm. What I mean, what mixed reviews? What are you hearing beyond the convention center? What are you hearing in the community?
It sounds like people don't think their voices are resonating with the same message that's being brought across throughout the DNC. It feels like there's this world within the DNC, and then outside the DNC, there are still people very doubtful who feel like their voice is unheard. There also are people who are afraid of what may happen if things don't line up. And as I talked to people even this weekend before yesterday, people were telling me about these Trump marches they were going to be a part of. And I was really surprised at the number of people who normally wouldn't participate in things like that. And I saw them, you know, rallying with the people who came against the DNC. I was just like, wow, what a divide there has been,
And these are
just with
Black people.
Black people, people that look like us. They are sold that if they go with the DNC, they're just not going to be much success within the communities. And so those are the people that are trying to sell that message to our communities, which leaves a very large gap in what people understand and what people don't understand, also in what people feel like they're not a part of. And that's the main thing. I think that even at this point we are, even with the DNC, I've been saying it all along, people have just, it doesn't seem very inclusive. And I've spoken to people who said the DNC was designed to be inclusive. It needs to be bridging the gap between what's happening in the communities and what's happening in the world of politics. But to me, I see a divide, and the divide is happening more and more because I hear the messages and the rhetoric that's being said, but it doesn't translate to what's happening in everyday life for us.
Is there anything that can be done to bridge the divide?
I think it can, but do I think it can happen before the election? That's where I am just most unsure, because I just see such a short window and I see all of these things happening on such a larger scale. It's no way to include the people in the communities. Let's take, for instance, the way they've sectioned off things. When you think about the Democratic National Convention, people are going to compare it to being caged into certain communities, because as I drove through where these barriers are put up throughout the regular communities before you get to the United Center, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I don't live right here, because it really is something to see. To walk out of your front door and not be able to maneuver a certain direction. And then you look out and you see all these militarized vehicles, law enforcement, things that really don't look like your everyday life. And then on the other hand, you hear people who are in those communities located very close to where the DNC is, and they feel like a lot of circumstances are being changed just for the face of the DNC. And they're wondering what's going to happen to our community after they leave. Are they just going to walk away and leave things, the way that they were prior to? Or is there going to be a consistency to making these changes? Those are the type of things that keep people disconnected, because it looks like something just happened and it changed the face of something. And people are very, very concerned about the way the optics look. But then what happens afterwards?
Hmm. Well, Attorney Darrell Jones, I mean, you're hearing, um, you just heard from Dr. LaShawn Latrice from Make Noise, make Noise for Change. Indeed, she's in Chicago and the United Center. That's an area where I went to high school, and it's when I was in high school 40 years ago. It was a very depressed area. I mean, I don't mind. Look, hey, I. Why would I hide my age? I'm very happy to be here. The thing is, it was an area that my mother said, no, this is going to be $1 million community. They're already planning it. They put what was then the most prestigious public high school in Chicago, one of the most prestigious public high schools in the country. They built it, and it was state of the art in the late 70s, early 80s. State of the art, and everybody fought tooth and nail. Can I get an amen, Dr. Latrice?
Amen.
To get into Whitney Young Magnet High School. And I think we were among the only ones whose parents were not in the machine. People pulled their kids out of the superintendent of schools pulled his daughter out of her school and put her in that school. Some of the wealthiest kids in the city went to that school. But on the other side of the highway, if you just walk across the bridge, there is the University of Illinois. Now it's UIC. It is on track to overshadow UIC Champaign Urbana. It's not a commuter school anymore. People are coming in from all over the world and they are living on campus. Then you have Rush, the Rush Medical Center, which is one of the top hospitals in the country. So literally within, if you drive, you can make that circle in 10 minutes. Now what was interesting was in the midst of all of that 40 years ago, this was an area that had really been burned down during the riots of 1968. It was struggling before. Blacks who came to Chicago went to the west side before they came to the south side. Middle class black folks came to the south side. Working class and poor black people, this is the first place you stopped, was the west side of Chicago. Do I have it right, Dr. Latrice?
Yes.
It took me a while to understand that, because I just figured black folks just live on the south and west sides and that's it. Because, I mean, for me, well, I don't really look at class with black people because we're in a caste. So
Mhm.
even if we've had some of the wealthiest black people in the world who've tried to move into affluent white areas and they have been pushed out.
That's right.
So, so I don't, so I'm like, your money does not protect you. Your degrees don't protect you. We're in a caste. Now we have classes within the caste, but that's it. But but within the black community, you will see and feel even the tensions about the west side and the south side. So so when she talks about having the barriers built as they're removing and moving black people, they're being priced out of that area right now. You're seeing gentrification on steroids. and you're also feeling you're feeling policed. See, Fred Hampton was on the West Side, and so you're feeling like you're not feeling protected as much as you are feeling caged in. Do I have it right, Latrice?
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Latrice? Okay, all right. So I just, I'm trying to interpret for you what she's saying because we're both Chicago. She and I are both Chicagoans, and so you kind of, you know, if you have any kind of sensitivity, you're like, oh, okay, because they locked everything down, and thus the protest, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, they're dispersed all over the city.
Yes.
So instead of having one massive protest, and these people are not smart. They get that. And I'm wondering what the reaction will be down the road on that. That which is why she's saying, well, the window's short. Is it 90 days, Daryl? I mean, you got a small window to do a whole lot of work because there are years and elections of neglect and disappointment that people are being asked to have, I guess, another Obama moment. So you tell me, what did you see?
Well, good morning, Santita. It was really interesting because, I was at the United Center. I did, go there to hear the speeches and to participate. And, I can appreciate what Dr. Latrice is saying because, what I did, I didn't take the buses in or anything along those lines. I parked in one of the communities that was out there and really walked, I guess, a mile and a half around the area. And so I could see where communities were had the barriers that were up so that they didn't have access to the roads and the ability to get out and things along those lines and the heavy military presence. So all of that certainly was there for this event. And I tell you, once I was inside the United Center, the one thing that seemed to be consistent throughout the evening was a unification. There was a joy that was there among the participants that were there for the convention. They were very excited about it. I thought that the speeches that were delivered were just incredibly inspiring for the most part. It was really a well scripted opening night, and I think that for Vice President Harris, that she could not have asked for a better opening night of a Democratic convention. I look at it and I ask, what would be the goals of night one? And I think that the goal of night one was try to provide some definition for the Americans that did not know Kamala Harris, that did not know the intricacies, didn't know the person of Kamala Harris. And I thought that they did a very good job of laying out who she is. I think that when they brought up her mother's friend and I guess one of her best friends from elementary school to talk about what she was as a person, how she stood up for her, took a rock to the head to protect her from a guy that was bullying her. I thought that was good. I thought that as they tried to develop and get inside of what it was like for her to be the prosecutor and the issues, the types of issues that she took on, I thought that was good and just building up her character. The other thing that I thought they were trying to do in night one was defining some of the issues and
Mhm.
laying out the contrast between her and President Trump, former President Trump. And I thought they did a very good job of at least laying out what they thought were the differences and wanted the people to focus on. And one of the things that I think that they were very successful in, and I think uh, uh, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, was very good at, was defining the political moment and what this moment means, and talking about how this was an opportunity, not simply because she was a woman to break the ceiling, but to break the glass ceiling, but this was a moment for the nation to move forward with this definition and its determination of democracy. So I thought that night one was excellent with regards to defining Kamala Harris, trying to lay out the definition and understanding of Donald Trump. The other thing that I thought was really excellent, AOC was off the charts. I thought with her presentation, Maxine Water was as well. But it was Jasmine Crockett that I thought that really brought it, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, that really brought it and defined Kamala in a way, Vice President Harris, in a
Mhm.
way that most people, I don't think, would have thought of her. And uh, um, when Congresswoman Crockett was moved to tears to talk about how she was, and I guess I say this because I remember Congresswoman Crockett before she was a member of Congress and
Mhm.
how she was. And to hear her say, this powerful Black woman, say that Congress had almost broken her in terms of wanting to say, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't feel as though anything I can do anything to contribute. And to hear her say that she went to the vice president's office and the vice president wiped her tears away and said, "You
Mhm.
can do this," and the encouraging words and the support that was
Well,
given
wait a minute. First, she went there on business.
on business.
She was there. They were at the residence, and she was
Mhm,
taking a picture. You have the photo op, and as she because and I want to paint the picture for people because she
mhm,
was because it's important. She was going through the line, and look, it's the grip and grin. That's what they want you to do when you're going through those lines, and people get a little upset when you know the president, when you know the vice president, when you know the principal, because they will stop you to acknowledge you. And even my brother, Congressman Jackson, told me, move it along. Because when we were at the caucus last year, I went to college with the vice president. So she's like, hey, I didn't know you were going to be here. But then Jonathan was like, hey, let's go. I was like, I'm talking to her. And we both looked at him like, hello, stop. But she saw that she was distressed because she was going to swallow it up and go through the line. And she said, the vice president said, stop. What's going on with you? Are you okay? And she said, she burst into tears. She said, stop, 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 stop. Pulled her off to the side. What's going on with you? What is it? And she said, after that talk, right? She said, it gave me the courage
mhm.
to move forward. And I wanted people to hear that
And
because the vice president is a human being. And we keep making these people into cardboard figures. That is not true. She is a person. She is a person. And I'm unbridled in my support for her. But I'm not an uncritical supporter because my thing is I want her to be great. So if I see something that, well, I think you need to do this a little bit differently, or don't forget about this, I'm going to say it because that's the only way that she can be great. She doesn't need sycophants. She doesn't need fans. She needs supporters. I'm sorry to interrupt, Daryl, but I thought that stood out like you. That
yeah,
stood out to me too.
yeah, absolutely, Santana, and thank you for for really narrating and giving a fuller picture of that moment.
Mhm.
But I think that was one of the moments where it really did humanize the vice president,
Mhm.
so that people could see it. Because again, Congresswoman Crockett, on her own right,
Mhm.
without being a member of Congress, is a strong Black woman.
Mhm.
And to see that exchange or hear about that exchange that went on, it sort of symbolized, and I guess I'm a former prosecutor, right? So to see that exchange reminded me of the victims of crimes when I was prosecuting cases, how they would be moved to tears and just needed someone to support them. To see that moment, I think is one of those things where, to me, it gave America a chance to understand who Vice President Harris is as a person, Santita. So, I look at those things and I think that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, laid out one when she was talking about, they were both former, I don't know if Hillary Clinton was a prosecutor or not, but when talking about when Vice President Harris was a prosecutor and all that she first started
Mhm.
doing with children
Well,
that
that
were the victims of crimes.
remember Hillary Clinton worked for Marion Wright Edelman,
Okay, okay, that's where that comes from. Okay.
and that's where their convergence working for children, and she's been a stalwart supporter of
Mhm.
Marion Wright. Hillary Clinton has of Marion Wright Edelman's work for since she came out of college and then went into law school. In fact, she was ambitious to work for her. And Marion Wright Edelman said, there's some other things you need to do. She said, but this is, I mean, it was her passion. And you can see that in the best-selling book she wrote, It Takes a Village. Yes, defending children, Hillary Clinton, again, another cardboard figure, but that is not what she is. That's not who she is, y'all.
Yeah, and so all of that, I thought Santita was successful for last night. And again, the foundation, and I hate to simply blow the horn that Dr. Latrice just blew, but another huge moment was watching Reverend Jackson come onto the stage. And watching the standing ovation and the length of the ovation that he received, and the respect and the understanding that but for Reverend Jackson, that we wouldn't have, and it was constantly repeated throughout the night, that but for what Reverend Jackson did in the 80s, that there would not have been a Barack Obama, there would not be the possibility of a president, Kamala Harris, nor a vice president, Kamala Harris.
Or
But
a
it was
Bernie Sanders.
or Bernie Sanders, absolutely. All of that was there, and to see Mignon Moore, and Dr. Daughtry, and knowing that the DNC now is made up of many of the folks that came out of Rainbow Push, and are heading up parts of the DNC for this convention. That to me was just incredibly telling.
Well,
And they did a tribute to Shirley Chisholm. They didn't walk away, try to walk back her blackness. They walked
mhm.
into it and said, "It's here."
Well, they've got to, because we're the party,
Mhm.
and we're leaving the party. And you got to get us back. I mean, that's my mother made that observation last night, because we are the party. I mean, we are that. I mean, it is a real rainbow now, Dr. LaShawn Latrice. And I wanted to speak to M. Richards, who lives in Minnesota. Hey, how you doing, sweetie? And you said they put up those barriers for a football game. The barriers are set up for safety. There were negative MAGA infiltrators that joined the protest, and M. Richards continued like they did in Minnesota for the George Floyd protest. And you're absolutely right. But what she is speaking to, and well, why don't you speak to that? I don't need to speak for you, Doctor LaShawn Latrice. I mean, because
Absolutely.
because I think Black people see this, and I don't know what your color is, and you can be white, brown, yellow, or red. I am too cool with you. You know that we're all one human family, right? But different people read different situations differently because of our experiences, right, Dr. Latrice?
That's right. That's right. And I can appreciate her perspective. But what I was saying was simply people who are in their own residential homes have to walk out to these barriers. I do understand that they were put up as a precautionary measure to keep someone safe, but I'm not quite sure which message it's actually portraying, because it almost looks like a caged in on one side, and then keeping people away from the important people. And that is some of the conversations that I've had with people who I know that live right in that area. Many people feel like the DNC is being protected, and the people in the communities are the ones that they're protecting them from. I am aware of protest agitators and people who come in to try to incite some sort of violence. We've seen that year after year with a number of protests. However, they would be on the same sides that the people who are protesting in the masses would be. So that their ideas to mix in with the people. So those barriers don't necessarily protect any sort of agitators from joining the protest, because we all know as people who rally, and I can say this personally, there is a way around everything. And so we don't even look at barriers as barriers. We just look at it as a challenge. So to speak, if we really want to get past something, there is a way to get past it. And that is not saying that you're not going to be peaceable, but it's just basically saying with protests like this, you mentioned it earlier, they try to make sure they separated and divided groups of people by saying, okay, you can march over here and you can march over there. And that is why I am an avid believer in not seeking to ask for licenses to protest.
Mm.
When you do that, what you do is you allow those in governmental capacity to try to steer you a different direction. And that's really what has happened. But I still see it as a strategy, if you know what I'm saying, that we want them to know that we'll be out there. And so everybody didn't apply for licenses for their protests because some people knew that they were going to be used as diversions. And I also think that as the days go on, you'll see more of unified protests where people will actually meet up. And they know what they're doing and they know exactly where they're going. And I just think people are just really getting their feet wet as to see what the police presence looks like. They also are trying to gauge safety. Also, separate themselves from anyone that may not represent the message that they have and those who are down there to agitate. So I do understand, but I also think that when you're caging people in, it falls into the same category as separation. And that's why I think that they didn't do a very good job including people in this entire process. Maybe what the DNC could have done was gone through the communities and actually talked to people and let them know what the purpose of the convention was. Because right now it just looks like a big party. I do agree that there was this huge unified flow of speeches and everything, but I also think that the people who are outside of the DNC, they don't necessarily see it that way because many of them were not tuned in as some of us were.
I want you to please, everybody, continue to like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. I need the thumbs up. I need you all to get those numbers up in terms of who likes the show and how many likes I get. So please, everybody, like the show. What about the issues as they were presented last night? Because we heard a lot about, for example, Gaza mentioned, even though that's what's driving a lot of the protests, and didn't hear the migrant crisis, which is a big deal in just all over the country. Uh, Attorney Jones and Dr. Latrice. Um, didn't hear a lot about DEI and affirmative action. Um, and the defeat of two two of the most high profile members of Congress. The attacks upon, I mean, it's a $100 million fund. That is what they have said that they've put. We don't know how much money they poured into this fund. We do know that between Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, those races, more than $25 million were used to defeat those two members of Congress. Not a peep. Do you think, I mean, do you think that was a good thing? Do you think that was smart? Because, I'm asking because their supporters are watching. See, Cori Bush's people are watching down in St. Louis and the surrounding area to see what the Democrats are going to do. Jamal Bowman's people are watching to see what the Democrats are going to do. Ilhan Omar's people are watching to see what the Democrats are going to do. Because primarily, these are black candidates who are being attacked. Rashida Tlaib is not black, but she's been under attack. So, it's like you want to. What do you think about that?
I think that it was a mistake. I think that this is further pushing the narrative that these things that are so important to people enough that they would fly to the state of Illinois to be a part of a rally. That is something that's near and dear to them. So when you're talking about the issue of Gaza, yes, they have to mention it because you have national protests going on. But then you go down the list and you're stating these other things. I didn't hear a mention of reparations. I didn't hear a mention of many things that I thought I was. But what I did notice was, and after talking to my sister Camilla, we talked about just how the Democrats don't really look like they have a meaningful platform on their policies. It looks like everyone is kind of pushing this whole anti-Trump rhetoric. And what we don't understand is when we talk about Trump and him being, a scab and how he uses the FBI as his own police and all that, we talk about that, but we don't talk about the real issues that affect the party and how it matriculates to those communities that are left out. And so I think it's kind of one of those things that we said before. If we focus too much on Trump, you don't get the issues out. You focus too much on Trump, you're going to still have people feeling that they're disassociated with the party. And they didn't talk about a lot on real accountability. And so I think that the only person that really kind of spoke to the people, I resonated with AOC in that
Mhm.
respect.
And so you need more of that.
Yes, absolutely.
So, what do you think, Attorney Jones? I mean, because what we're doing today is really looking at this and see. Well, I want to know from both of you because you do radio. I mean, you're in media as well as being a practicing attorney. She is an organizer in the community, in addition to being a psychologist. So she looks at this also, I must say, clinically.
Mhm.
Just how things land with people. I'm mindful of that. But both of you, through your radio show, through her interactions with people, through your interactions with people, you're talking to people, you're having to convince people to get registered to vote, to vote. We all are. Because I mean that's what's happening out here. And so that's why I want to know from you what you heard because with reproductive rights that certainly is an issue, but um, inflation is a big issue. I mean, folks cannot afford to live. I mean, it's getting worse.
Worse.
Reparations is a real conversation in the Black community. I mean, and it's growing. It's growing. Um, in the broader community, migration. All Americans of every conceivable background are saying, wait, we are seeing people poured into the country. What is happening here? Um, Even as you want to welcome people in who are desperate uh, to survive. That's I mean, but people and no one's even asking the question, why are these folks running away from Venezuela? Nope, you don't. It's not like they're fleeing to America; they're running away from home. These are two different propositions,
Hmm.
and you can't not discuss them and just tell people, well, look, just vote for in November. That might have worked in 2008, 2012, even maybe 2016. It's not going 2020. Okay, in 2024, I don't think that's going to work, Attorney Jones. You got to give people more than Trump, Trump, Trump. I mean, people are. I'm gonna tell you. I don't need to tell you. You're in the Black community. Black folks are like, look, enough. Some, not all,
Mhm.
but they don't want to hear that. They want to know who's going to give me some relief. I need relief.
Yeah, and I think that President Biden and his remarks try to touch on that
Hmm.
to some degree. And I always have to remind myself that this is just day one. All right, so we have 3 more days they can still touch on and go more deeply into some of the issues. And as we were talking, I'm putting down on some of my notes. You know me, I'm always writing down notes as people are talking. Uh, you know, there really was no touch on the migrant crisis at all. There was absolutely, I don't recall hearing anyone touch on the
I,
migrant crisis. The closest we came to talking or hearing any talk about the migrant crisis was when President Biden mentioned immigration. And then
mhm.
in mentioning immigration, it was more along the lines of former President Trump sort of imploding or stopping the immigration bill that the Senate had been working on to secure the border and to keep people from coming in. But that didn't really answer the question that the protesters are here for, and it sort
Because
of played
he kept
to
the policy in place. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was actually trying to go beyond the policy that was in
Right.
place with the bill that was being introduced. Because he was talking about how had the immigration bill been passed, the bipartisan immigration bill
Mhm.
been passed, that it would have been the strongest, immigration bill or anti-immigration bill that existed. So,
Mhm.
he wasn't going to a progressive base on that. He was going, I think, reaching either for the moderates that were out there or for some of the moderate Republicans maybe that were out there, and perhaps some of the independents. But it certainly wasn't going to that Democratic base at that point. The other part that I think they really focused on to some degree very heavily certainly was what they thought would be a defining issue, and that was reproductive rights. And that was the reason that they brought out the three ladies
Oh yeah.
family to talk about the impact of the Supreme Court decision in the Dobbs case, as well as what it has meant to young girls and women that are trying to either the result of rape, incest, or what have you, or the result of problematic pregnancies that needed to be aborted and that became life endangering for the parents. That I think they were really lifting up because they see that as a winning issue for Vice President Harris in this upcoming election. They wanted to downplay that, which would be more problematic in terms of having to explain what's going on. And so that's why I assume we heard very slight mention of Gaza. I was disappointed in that. I was anticipating him taking on Gaza head on. The newspapers, the news reports, everything is talking about what's happening in the streets of the protests that are going on around the convention around Gaza. So it seemed to me that was something they wanted to really take on, but I am sure they did not want it to overshadow everything else that was happening with the party. But it's just incredibly important that they hear the community and they respond. And I think they did it to some degree in that. And we also heard touches of voting rights and trying to protect voting rights, but nothing really substantial in terms of what they were going to do, Santita.
I mean, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, how did these, because I'm seeing that, Terry Watkins says the loss of Bowman and Bush, it's big.
Yes.
How much did Dems support them? I mean, you can't lose people who are that iconic in a sustained campaign for which the Democrats have really had no answer. Well, their answer, they did have an answer. They were going to let them be defeated and get some people who were manageable come in. I mean, look, that's what it is. But I'm saying when you're out in the community, Daryl Jones and Dr. LaShawn Latrice, when you have to go out in the community and talk to people about how to vote, they remember that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring that up to those of us who are talking to folks, and they are not happy.
People feel like they get to a place and they're excited about certain people who really represent them in a certain way, and then they abandon them when it's convenient. That doesn't look good, because when you think about it, not mentioning the migrant crisis, when we can see right before our eyes how it's impacting our lives, what about the millions of people around the country who have been just homeless no matter what? I mean, they've not had a place to sleep. They've not had adequate food. Now you have inflation coming into play. But then on Sunday, you can go downtown and you can see these militarized boats floating in the water protecting some parties. People see stuff like that. And when they see those type of things, it's discouraging, because it feels like they're being pushed out, like they're not important enough to include in the conversation. I'm looking at mothers trying to get their children in schools. And I mean people who are United States citizens trying to register their children in school, but because they have an in-between address, they're getting a lot of flack about registering their child. But then someone that is coming from another country can literally just walk up and declare themselves someone outside of the United States, and they can get right in. No mention of immunization, no mention of anything, that all these other people are being held to these strict standards. I mean, I heard that the other day when I was inside of one of the district offices, and I was mortified. And I turned to the lady and I said, just declare yourself homeless. Why are you sitting there trying to explain your address situation when somebody over here can just walk right in and say, I want to register my kid. I'm not a citizen of the United States. Those issues are real. People go to the grocery store, cannot even afford to buy groceries, but then they see that some people are being given link cards. with exorbitant amounts on them. I mean, we just have to really think about this. That is what's really being said in the communities.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Dr. Latrice. And one of the big things is that in essence, I believe what it can cause and what it has the ability to do is to divide the communities that are there. Because if you're from one of the communities that you're not receiving benefits, or you're not receiving the benefits that you believe that you're entitled to or should receive, and you see folks that are coming in from another country that are receiving those benefits, that can really spark, and I would assume, and of course, you're the psychiatrist, but I imagine that could really source a lot of resentment toward the migrants that are coming in, and it's a horrible situation.
It really is.
Oh no, I mean the final word. I got a couple of minutes. Well, a minute and a half for you. How precise? And a minute and a half for Daryl Jones, who can be heard on WOLDC radio every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Dr. LaShawn Latrice.
Yes. Just in a nutshell, I wish there is a way to let people know that their voices are being heard, no matter what it might look like. Maybe there's going to be some time where people actually go out and talk to people, talk to the communities who are here, who are in the state of Illinois attending the DNC. They should have opened up the parameters to include everyday people in these type of conventions, and then people can understand what is actually being done to include them. Right now, it's just kind of the opposite effect. So we can't ignore the issues. We can't ignore the accountability that's missing. We can't focus all on just saying the negative things about Donald Trump. We know who he is. We know what he is. Why spend time talking about him when he's been running for the last 3.5 years? Literally. I mean, he never stopped running. And I mean, we got to remember the media helped. They propelled this thing. They pushed that narrative. And so right now, that's what people are wondering. What are they really tricking us on? They feel like the media is trying to shape this whole view of how they see things when they know clearly they've been left out of the conversation. We cannot continue to call ourselves a democracy and function like that.
Attorney Daryl Jones. These are like the deeper questions and deeper issues that people are talking about.
Absolutely, Santita. And I tell you, one of the things that was missing for me last night, and that I'm hoping they address, that's in tonight or tomorrow or the next day, and that is this: they did not have the voice of Gen Z. They had AOC that spoke, but they didn't have the young voters' voices on that stage. That wasn't there. And that really is the backbone of what really made President Biden President Biden. So, and I cannot recall any of the speakers being 18 to 20 years old, 25 years old. None of them, none of them, none of them were there. That's a vote. That Gen Z vote is the largest potential voting bloc in America. You can't ignore that. And that's what they did on day one, is that they ignored that. So I'm hoping they get that corrected and they have that voting bloc heard. And I agree 100% with Dr. Latrice that you've got to hear from the community, from just the everyday person in the community with the everyday kitchen table issue. You got to hear from them, and you got to be certain that you're there listening to them, because that's what makes it easier for us that are in the voting rights community to be able to go into the communities and get people to understand the connection between their vote and their food table, their policy, what's directly affecting them. It's important to hear that, and I'm hoping that they get that corrected, Cynthia.
I do too, and I think there's time because Lorraine said, they did not ignore the young people. You're right, but they need to be weaved in more prominently because people, when they fear they're being ignored, if you do not over index, if you don't really make the extra effort to bring them into the fold in a prominent way, you lose them. And that's what we don't want to see happen. So everybody, and of course at Rainbow Push yesterday and today and through Thursday, you've had the Palestinian community meeting, Palestinian community, excuse me, meeting over at Rainbow Push, having seminars. Some wonderful. We had a wonderful seminar yesterday. We talked to the first young man who resigned from the Biden administration. He was an appointee, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, and attorney Daryl Jones, listening to how he decided as a presidential appointee. I mean, he was appointed by President Biden. He had to leave the administration. He said, because what you're doing with the Palestinians is just unconscionable. So there's going to be more talk like that at 930 East 50th Street starting at 1 o'clock today. And I must say, the lunch was fantastic. It really was. It was great food. So get on over there today between 1 and 4. And let's go to the second hour. We're going to continue this conversation to talk about what it is that we saw and what it is that we want to see. Because you know what? Even though things are set, there's still space to move things around at the convention and include and bring other people in. So, and you heard some stories last night about the vice president, about the Democratic nominee. She listens, she hears, she really is part of the community. Now, mind you, is she who she was 10 years ago? Nobody is. If you haven't changed, you haven't grown. If you haven't grown, I don't know how you say that you're living. But the question is, how can we get how can the case be made for people to vote for the Democrats in the fall, and not just at the top of the ticket, going down ballot? All of that's at stake, everybody. All of it. So go on over to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody, please listen to the show. Listen to it, listen to it, listen to the show. Go on and get involved. Morning Stars. Sending you so much love. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul.